I think a lot of people, we're going to be talking about Hateful Eight stuff, but I have to take a step back for a second because I loved Fast Five and I loved Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's really hard to make those big blockbusters, work as well as those two worked. So I guess let's just start with, what was it like being a part of both of those films, and when you were working on them, did you realize, shit, these are really good movies?
It's funny, Fast Five, I didn't realize it until we watched the first assembly of the movie altogether. I knew there were... Reading in the script, the idea of the vault heist,
right.
It sounded a little silly. But as the dailies started coming in, we're like, oh, this is pretty exciting. And then when we watched the whole movie together, seeing how much I can't give Justin Lin enough credit in terms of what he brought to those characters, having the actors improv, the stuff that Tyrese and Ludacris are doing, they just bring so much humor and heart to the story that you're really invested in them. So that final the sequence at the end of the movie where we see what everybody's done with the money.
Sure.
And even the moment when they open the vault and all the money spills out, never have I seen an audience react with such glee. We're so proud of our heroes at that moment, and it was so much fun to go on that journey with them. I mean, especially since obviously I'd been on both Tokyo Drift and the fourth one, that was just a joy. But with Fast Five, it actually wasn't until we watched it all together for the first time that I remember turning to one of my co-editors and being like, oh my God, this movie's great. And I know that it sounds really not humble for me to say that, but I feel like I'm a contributor. But it's Justin's movie, and he just knocked it out of the park.
100%. Well, let's jump in real quick to Guardians,
sure.
Which was one of my favorite films of that year. Mm-hmm. The balance of seriousness, but levity and fun and action, James Gunn crafted, it's so good. Mm-hmm. When you were involved, the same thing. Did you know as you were cutting, oh wait, this is really good?
That one, it's actually was kind of different because I'm a guy who grew up reading comic books, from age 14 on, and bizarrely, I've never read a Guardians of the Galaxy comic. I'd heard of Rocket Raccoon, that was pretty much it. And when I heard about the movie, I see there's a talking raccoon and a walking tree. This sounds like it could be the silliest movie ever made. Yes. And I knew James. I was the apprentice editor on Romeo and Juliet. That was my second job ever. Right. When he asked me to read the script, I was really hesitant because I thought, oh man, this really has the potential to be a disaster. It just sounds so silly, and I didn't want to have to tell him that. So I resisted for a while, but then I finally, there was... Bone Tomahawk was actually supposed to happen at that point, and it pushed by a year. So I had a window. So I said, okay, I'm just gonna go in and read the script and see what happens. I called my agent. I was like, can I read the script without actually committing? Yeah, that's fine. So I read the script and I was blown away. I mean, by the 1/3 mark, the thing completely had me. I was invested in all the characters. By the end of the movie, I had a lump in my throat, and I was like, yeah, I got to do this. So honestly, it was at the script stage when I knew there was something special, and the movie itself really bore that out. James did such a great job with the casting and directing the actors and injecting his sense of humor into the proceedings. And I think actually, interestingly enough, having the PG-13 rating actually kind of reined him in a really good way. I feel like that movie is more of a James Gunn movie than anything else that's existed. It really does reflect his personality.
No, 100%, and it's I agree with you. I think everyone was talking tree Raccoon, this is going to end badly. This is the one that Marvel is not going to walk away from. One of their biggest hits. Yep. People love the thing. Before I jump into my some of the questions, are you working on the sequel?
Yes. Yes.
So, are you as excited on this one as the first one?
I most certainly am.
I know. So, when you're involved in something like this, does that mean you also go to Atlanta?
Yeah, I will be going to Atlanta.
Oh, so you're about to get knee deep in it.
Got about a month and a half.
Yeah, I was going to say, can't wait. Let's jump into why I get to talk to you today. I'm doing a series on the site called Film 101, where we're talking to a lot of people about quote-unquote below-the-line positions and, what really goes on behind the scenes. So I'm going to jump into some really basic stuff that hopefully you can illustrate with your, knowledge how it all really works.
Sure.
What exactly, people are going to hear editor, but, what exactly does an editor do? If you want to be, real layman's terms.
In terms of the process from beginning to end, or
how you want to describe what an editor does?
I mean, I watch every frame of footage that's shot, and I determine. I do a first pass on my own. Utilize frequently, I will get the opportunity to watch dailies with the director, and so I'll get his thoughts on the material, and then I just kind of use that along with kind of my gut feelings to put it all together and determine where we want to be when. What character we want to be on at any given moment. When it's action, what's the most exciting way to put the sequence together? If it's drama, what's going to create the best emotional reaction? I add sound effects. I add music depending on who the filmmaker is. Some directors don't like to work with music, others do. And it's really about presenting the director, at least the first time around, with the best realized version of the movie as scripted. Then, when we get into post-production, it's about finding what is most important to the not to the story. What is most important to the movie? I boil it down to three elements: story, character, and atmosphere. If something doesn't contribute to those three, it probably doesn't need to be in the movie. And so it's about finding out what those things are and taking them out, and it's also about looking for where have we repeated information,
Sure.
and so just streamlining it as much as possible, so as to make it an engaging experience for the audience.
What is the biggest misconception people have about what you do?
Probably the biggest misconception is that we start editing the moment the film is finished being shot. We start on day 2. We've got the dailies from the first day of shooting. We can start editing.
How soon are you on a movie, and when do you leave?
How soon am I on a movie?
Yeah.
I mean,
for example, let's not to put in Guardians, but Guardians 2 is shooting in February or April, one of these months coming up. How quickly are you on it? You know what I mean? And when do you finish?
I will get there the week they start shooting, and I will finish probably 3 weeks before the movie releases.
Okay. What is the collaboration process typically like with a director?
Typically, or with Quentin.
Let's use Quentin as an example.
Because Quentin is a fairly atypical example.
Right. Well, let's work in Hateful Eight. So what is Quentin like?
So Quentin, when he's shooting a movie, he is entirely focused on production. He does not set foot in the editing room while he's shooting. He's all about maintaining his vision, getting the best footage he possibly can. He has ridiculous pre-visualization abilities as far as his head is concerned. So he really knows what he's got. He knows when he has what he needs. And so it's not until he's finished shooting the movie that he comes into the editing room. He'll usually take a couple weeks off after finishing the movie, which is good because I need that time to finish my assembly. And then he comes in and we're working together. We'll usually work from anywhere from 8 to 10 hours a day. And he really does his homework. He goes home every night and watches the dailies for the section that we're going to tackle the next day, to go over he'll usually choose his 2 or 3 favorite performances, and make sure that we've got them in there, and we'll decide, like, he's like, oh, I narrowed it down to these 2. Let's see let's see what we think is the best one. And sometimes it has to do with what works the best over the course of a scene. You might have one line that is a perfect line reading, that's exactly the line reading that he heard in his head as he wrote it, but it doesn't match with anything else in the scene. So it's about finding some consistency there, and what works to tell the story as best we can.
How would you compare 2 different directors you've worked with that have completely different tendencies?
Okay, so Justin Lin he doesn't really enjoy sitting in the editing room. I'm not sure how much that has to do with his background as an editor. When I started working with him, it was specifically, I was on the movie Better Luck Tomorrow, where he'd edited the movie himself, and MTV Films said, hey, if there are any changes you want to make, we're happy to foot the bill for them. And he said, you know what, there are a few things I'd like to tweak, but I don't want to be an editor anymore. Like, can we hire someone? And that's when I came on. But I think that he doesn't really enjoy sitting behind the Avid. This is why he has 3 or 4 editors on every movie that he does, so that he can kind of come in and sit, like, watch a sequence, give notes, leave, and then go to the next editor's room and see how they're doing, and do the same thing. So he's never locked down on one thing for too long. I mean, it's good. He gets a lot of different people's perspectives on his material that way. Quentin is exactly the opposite. Like, he only wants to work with one editor, and he wants to be working on the material the whole time, and it makes perfect sense. He wrote the movie, he directed the movie, he wants to be as involved as he possibly can be in the editing of the movie. So he is full on in there. We're sitting side by side the whole time, and yeah, I would say probably 30% of our day is spent talking about movies, but the remainder is spent focused on the task at hand.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are there other film departments that you have to collaborate with?
While the movie is being shot, I mean, well, certainly, the script supervisor is my best friend, because he's got to be aware of continuity at all times, and if something isn't matching, he has to take note of it, and if I see something that doesn't match, I will usually reach out and say, I think we might have a problem here, and 9 times out of 10 he's like, yeah, we knew about that, but it's fine. And then obviously there's the camera department, where primarily it's just if God forbid there's a lens issue or something, and we see the material and it's like, oh no, we need to do something about this, and they immediately they got to swap out a lens, so we, in that case, it's kind of us more helping them, but we're all working on the same movie together. We all want it to be as good as it possibly can be. So
totally. What's the hardest part of your job and the most rewarding?
The hardest part is always putting the first pass together, because I'm doing that on my own. So I don't have the director sitting there kind of guiding me through it. I'm figuring it out as I go. I have to look at the material and say, okay, I think he intends for this to go to this. Like, it definitely requires the most brain power. It's also, when I get to watch the whole thing together, it's a blast, and I mean, the most rewarding moment, certainly on something like Hateful Eight, is getting to show Quentin a sequence, like my assembly of a sequence for the first time. Like, here I am working with your footage. How'd I do? And when he reacts with glee, I mean, as a guy who walked out who left the theater after seeing Reservoir Dogs, so excited about like the best new American filmmaker in years, to get to actually be working alongside him and contributing to his movies. I mean, this is the greatest thrill imaginable.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
I pinch myself often.
When did you decide that you wanted to be an editor?
I went to film school at NYU, and Everybody goes to film school to become a director. I had this realization about midway through my sophomore year that, hey, there's this slim possibility that I might not get a directing gig immediately upon graduation, so perhaps I should focus on a craft. And editing was always my favorite part of the process. It's because you're crafting how the story is being told, you're crafting performances. It's the closest to directing without actually having to deal with the elements and with potentially actors who aren't behaving well. I get to do it all from the comfort of an air-conditioned room.
I completely understand. How did you train for the gig? How did you train to be an editor? You mentioned film school. Was there anything else that you did to get ready for the job?
When I was in film school and I'd made the determination that this is what I want to do, I told all my friends, this is going to be my focus. If you need an editor for your senior project, let me know. So I cut a lot of. Not only did I direct my own movies and edit them, but I cut a lot of my friends' movies, and it was a great experience. And after I graduated, a couple friends of mine shot features, and so I cut those. And it's just, you learn the most by doing. And so even getting to work on when I was an assistant working on All the Pretty Horses for Sally Menke, she would give me a few scenes to cut, and she was incredibly gracious in terms of. I'd do a pass and I'd send it in to her, and she would tell me what she changed and why she changed it, and it was an invaluable learning experience. So I think that type of stuff is really what prepared me for it.
Talk a little bit about how you broke into the industry. You mentioned working on that project, but what was the thing that really got you into the door of quote-unquote Hollywood?
So I worked on 2 movies in New York, and in the first movie, the editor could tell that I was very serious about doing this, and he said, "You're going to move out to LA, right?" And I said yes, and he's like, "I've got some friends out there. I'll give you some numbers, and we'll see what happens." And so when I came out here, I didn't know a soul, but I had the number of Rob Reiner's editor, a guy named Bob Layton, and he took me out to lunch with his assistant, Alan Bell, who has since gone on to edit the last 3 Hunger Games movies, and Alan really, it's all about kind of who you meet and how many people you can meet to get yourself established. He introduced me to a post supervisor at New Line who was like, you seem like you really know what you're doing. I can't offer you anything until you get into the union. So I found a non-union. I worked on a bunch of super low-budget Albert Pune movies in the mid '90s. It was like in the space of about 3 months, I think I worked on 4 Albert Pune movies. It was kind of insane. At least 2 of which starred Rutger Hauer, and that then led to my getting an apprentice job on a movie called Crosswords, which got me my another Rutger Hauer star, which got me my 100 days of paid work, which got me into the union. And I went in to see that same post supervisor at New Line, and I said, "Hey, guess what? I'm in the union." And he said, "That's great. We have this movie about the porn industry in the '70s that is looking for an apprentice editor. I'm going to set up an interview with you right away." And I went in and interviewed on Boogie Nights, and I sat down with Dylan Tishner, the editor, and literally the next morning I got the call, "Can you start today?" So
yeah, the fact that you've worked for Paul and all these other people is crazy. Who are some of the artisans in your field that you admire?
Well, I got to go with Paul Hirsch. The guy cut Star Wars, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Blowout. The list of masterpieces. Mission Impossible 4. This is a phenomenal editor. One day I hope to have a resume half as great as his.
What's the best advice you ever got about being an editor? It can be R-rated. It can be anything.
It's to not let your ego get in the way. I find frequently a director will want to do something differently than I've done it, and I'll take it personally, and I have to not do that, and I have to kind of force myself not to do that, because generally, somebody want to do something a different way, especially when it's the director's vision. Well, I am in his service, and just not, doing my best to deliver a director's vision without an understanding that lateral moves are not anything to really be concerned about. My job is to give the director the movie that he wants.
Sure. My last thing for you about Hateful Eight. I'm always obsessed with deleted scenes and, first cuts. And are there a lot of deleted scenes from this on the cutting room floor, or?
There's probably something in the realm of 40 minutes worth of material that is not in the finished movie. But not all of it. Quentin came into the editing room having a pretty good idea as to what material was never going to make it into the movie, and the same thing kind of happened with Django also. The material was there that enhanced the characters and I think helped the actors with their performances. But he realized as he was shooting it, I know how long this movie is, and this isn't going to make it in. There's a bunch of stuff. I don't know if did you attend the live read?
No, but I know all about it. And the script got out there, and it's
there was a big subplot in the script about the rats in the basement, and we realized, he knew from the moment he came in, I think I'm going to call this rat business. We never actually put it together. I had it in my assembly, but working with him, it was nothing that ever made it into to the director's cut of the movie, because he just knew it wasn't going to be there. And there were little moments there was a moment between Chris Mannix and meeting Joe Gage that it's like, this is in a place where we're going to lose stuff. There's stuff that you see in the trailer. There's a sequence in the movie where John Ruth collects guns from Joe Gage and Oswaldo. In the trailer, you also see him asking Bob for his gun, and there's a shotgun on the wall, and he's like, "What's that?" "Oh, there's that." Well, it was just something that we realized it's a repeated beat that we don't need. Yeah,
as a huge fan of QT, it's always one of those things where, it might not be in the movie, I still want to see it. Do you know what I mean? Because he's such a good.
Oh, I understand. No, there's never anything that we cut where it's like, well, we cut it because it was bad.
Right? Yeah. It's one of those things where I still want to see it, and I'm also waiting for him to do the Kill Bill as one movie. But that's a whole nother thing.
Screening at the New Beverly at the end of this month, I believe.
I think I need to get tickets. On that note, I'm going to say thank you so much for your time, and can't wait for what you're doing next.
Thank you very much.
Stop.